Yeah. Hair flip, yeah, I'm a badass bitch. I don't like it. Hair flip, yeah. Oh my god. So you guys should be happy. Oh my goodness. Hair flip. But anyways, hair flip. Hair flipping on these hoes. Hi.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to your boy Sean Davey Way. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe on your way in. Tap that bell if you would like to be notified of all of our future content. Today, we will discuss Sparkle. You don't know who she is? She is the ex-protege of R. Kelly's from the 90s, an R&B singer that never really popped. Well, not without Robert himself. She is also the aunt of the young lady in the infamous 2001 tape with R. Kelly. Shout out to Dave Burns. He stays really close to this R. Kelly case, so make sure you guys check him out on Instagram, Twitter. He is very good. So he states that in court, Jane, which is Roshona, also confirms that it was her Aunt Stephanie, aka Sparkle, that leaked the alleged tape to the public. In recent news, Sparkle is back underneath the spotlight, and not how she wants to be. She's in the spotlight because her niece, Roshona Landfair, has now came to court and testified in the federal court trial against R. Kelly and the state of Illinois. Before we jump into the tea, I want to say this. I've stated multiple times that I did not feel that Sparkle was telling the truth about a lot of things. More so of doing things out of spite against R. Kelly because he broke up with her, and also doing things out of spite because she was jealous of the attention that her niece still got while Sparkle was around R. Kelly and after she left. I've always stood firm on that, and I'm going to stay firm on it. I feel that Sparkle was around being very greedy, taking everything that she could take from the situation while knowing and doing things that she knew she should not have been doing. When she was no longer being fed by R. Kelly is when she decided to retaliate against R. Kelly instead of being a person good of heart that have seen things happen around her that should not be happening, hearing rumblings of things that she knows that is a higher percent of being true than false, and not just going in and reporting it because she wants to protect her niece. She never wanted to do that. She wanted to exploit her niece herself. Even so much to being the person her niece states in court, Roshona states in court, Jane, that Sparkle was the one who released the tape, which is not shocking. I just stated the other day during a live that I feel that Sparkle and Lisa Van Allen got together and concocted this plan to try and take R. Kelly down. Two women scorned by R. Kelly instead of doing the right thing, because what Robert did was still wrong. So I am not defending him at all, but what these women did were wrong too, and they were enabling until they were no longer being fed. All enablers need to be arrested from the parents on down. Everyone needs to be arrested. So her niece states on the stand that Sparkle was the one who allegedly leaked the videotape. Hearing Sparkle sit on Surviving R. Kelly and state how she was upset with R. Kelly because he had Andrea Kelly up inside of a room, basically like Rapunzel. She had to knock, in order to leave the room and this and that. And she looked at R. Kelly like, how dare you do that? It's like, you don't even care because you're sleeping with him. Like, he's your boyfriend. Why would you care and how he treats his wife? You were upset because R. Kelly brought her out in front of you. It's like the audacity of you to bring this woman out around me at all, as if Drea is the other woman when Sparkle is herself. So I never believed any of that stuff. And just like a lot of the rest of the world, a lot of you felt the same way. A lot of you felt that Sparkle was way more involved than she was willing to lead on. And it's the same thing with Andrea Kelly. So we will be breaking both of them down in this video and letting you know how they definitely were doing things that R. Kelly was doing. They were a part of it, and they should be held responsible as well. Roshona got on the stand. Now, remember, the first trial, she lied, okay? In 2008, she lied. but she is granted immunity this trial so that she doesn't have to wear this. So she has immunity from perjuring the first time. So she's not going to get in any trouble for that. They're just going to let all of that go for her testimony. Okay. And during this testimony, she states that Sparkle is the one who initially leaked the tape, which makes sense. In 2000, Sparkle contacted CPS and had CPS go over to her sister and brother-in-law's home about her niece, about these allegations that were out about Roshona and R. Kelly. And then the tape drops the next year. That is not a coincidence. Clearly, Sparkle knew that the tape was coming out, so she was getting certain things done because she wanted R. Kelly to go to jail. Even more reason why she testified. She testified in the first case, in the 2001-2008 case. She testified because she wanted him to go down out of spite. She wanted revenge on R. Kelly. She never cared about her niece. Roshona, aka Jane, also states, Jane said she found out from her aunt Stephanie, aka Sparkle, in 2001 that the tape featuring her and R. Kelly had leaked publicly. She said her parents asked her about the tape, but of course I denied everything. That definitely gives me more reason to believe Roshona when she said, well, aka Jane, that her aunt Stephanie, aka Sparkle, leaked the tape. The tape comes out in 2001, but before it does, she hears about the tape. Her family, her mom and dad and her, hear about the tape because Sparkle comes and says something. Sparkle said in Surviving R. Kelly that she was contacted and they had her come down and watch the tape. Like basically law enforcement had her come down to identify her niece. So before that, Sparkle should have never seen any tape because that's what she alluded. She alluded she never saw, anything of it until she had to come down to identify her niece. And then Roshona comes and testifies and says, no, she had already knew. She came and told us about it because she leaked the tape. She is the reason the tape got out of jealousy. She was jealous of her niece. She absolutely was. This is crazy. And when I say jealous, it's not like she's jealous of her niece because, Sparkle had a career with R. Kelly and being a singer, and now her niece is this big artist, so she's jealous. No, she's jealous because she knew her niece was sleeping with her ex-boyfriend. That is where the jealousy came from. Sparkle was jealous because she knew Roshona was sleeping with Robert. She did not like that. She was jealous of that. Even more reason to humiliate her. She wanted to humiliate Roshona. If Sparkle didn't know about the tape or never saw the tape before she went in and sat down with law enforcement to identify Roshona, then why was Sparkle contacting Roshona, her mom and dad, telling them, especially Roshona's parents, that there is a tape? That means you saw it. That means you know it's her. How do you know it's her if you're calling us, telling us about something you've never seen? Clearly, Sparkle saw the tape because she had it in her possession working with Lisa Van Allen. Let's get into how she met R. Kelly. Roshona met Kelly. Jane met Kelly when he attended a gospel concert at her church. Her aunt, which is Stephanie, aka Sparkle, took her to meet Kelly backstage. Roshona's quote, I knew who he was as an artist. I knew his level of success as a performer. As a person who was aspiring to be in the music industry, I was excited like everyone else. So here again is another lie Sparkle told. Sparkle says that she was not alone when they met, that they were around family and whatnot when she introduced her niece to R. Kelly. Yet Roshona says it was backstage. Backstage meaning R. Kelly was by himself somewhere backstage, whether it was a dressing room or wherever. They were clearly isolated from a bunch of other people. It's hard to introduce someone in a crowd. So when she introduced Roshona, they were clearly more so of alone. There was no parental guidance around or anything like that. Although that's what Sparkle tried to communicate. Once again, lying to cover her tracks. Roshona, aka Jane, also states this about her aunt Stephanie, aka Sparkle, in court. Stephanie told Jane, I should ask him to be my godfather. I should sit on his lap and rub his head and ask him to play that role in my life, Jane testified. She did, and Kelly chuckled a bit and said yes. So Jane, aka Roshona, is stating here that her Aunt Sparkle told her to go and request R. Kelly to be her godfather by sitting on his lap and rubbing his head when asking the question. So Sparkle, not only did you tell your underage niece to go sit on a grown man's lap, that grown man was your boyfriend. You were dating R. Kelly. You didn't mind Roshona sitting on his lap or anything like that because you were already having menage a trois with him and whatnot. You were already sleeping with him with groups of women. So it wasn't a big deal. And R. Kelly had people recruit. This was you recruiting Roshona. Roshona states in her testimony that she recruited other girls because that's what Robert told her to do. Why would Robert not tell Sparkle the same thing? So Sparkle recruits her niece by telling her niece to go sit on his lap and whatnot. That's you bringing her in, bringing her into the fold. So you knew that they were sleeping together. You knew it from day one because you hooked it up. That's how you knew everything, Sparkle. So how disgusting of you to tell her to do what she did, but on top of that, act oblivious. You're acting oblivious to it when you know everything. Further proof that R. Kelly and Sparkle were in a relationship, she definitely triples down on it. Roshona triples down on it in court. Let's get into that. Kelly and her aunt, Stephanie Sparkle Edwards, were in a romantic relationship, Jane says. She saw them often and frequently went with them to the studio, now identifying pictures of Chicago Track Studios from the late 1990s. I do not believe Jane, aka Roshona, is lying. She is putting all of the fitting pieces, the pieces that have been missing for years, together, and it all makes sense. It doesn't seem like out of this world. Everything she's saying is making sense. Sparkle was more trying to push it onto her family and push it onto her sister and brother-in-law, when once again Sparkle was just as involved, even more involved than her sister and brother-in-law, because Sparkle was taking her niece to the studio alone. Sparkle was never mentioning that. She said when her niece came to the studio, she came with her parents. But her niece is stating here, no, there were times to where I went with her and him and hung out with them at the studio often. And they're clearly together. Like when people are kissing and hugged up, duh, they're dating. So she always knew that they were in a relationship. Sparkle, you said you knew nothing about Aaliyah. You were so dumbfounded by it and this and that, you know, Aaliyah's parents and Barry Hankerson was always around. So of course you knew nothing. But if you didn't know anything, why did you feel that it was okay to introduce your niece to R. Kelly? You introduced her because you already knew all of the rumors and everything that was going on about him, plus what you were involved with yourself. R. Kelly, again, had his girls recruit. Why wouldn't he have you recruit as well? You literally recruited your niece for your boyfriend's pleasure. Roshona, aka Jane, also brings up Sparkle's accomplice, if you ask me, which is Lisa Van Allen. Now let's get into this. Pinchage asked Jane about her encounters with Kelly and Lisa Van Allen, an over 18 girlfriend of Kelly. She, Van Allen, who will testify for the prosecution, and Kelly had threesomes multiple times, including one that was taped in a log cabin room. Now, this thieving monster, Lisa Van Allen, stated on Surviving R. Kelly that she did have a threesome with Roshona and Robert. She did, but she stated that she was 17 years old when it happened. That is a lie. This is why Lisa Van Allen is testifying for the prosecution for immunity, because right here, she stated that they had threesomes multiple times. So that clearly could have happened, which it did, after Lisa was 18 years old. So Lisa was a grown woman sitting here interacting and doing sexual things with a teenager, knowingly doing things with a teenager. Lock her up. So social media starts going crazy once this testimony of Roshona's comes out, especially because of the Sparkle piece. A lot of people are upset with Sparkle, and they're like, well, wow, all of this was going on, blah, blah, blah. I wonder if this is true. So someone comments about it, and one commentator says, I was wondering the same thing, about if this is true with Sparkle. And Sparkle comes in and comments and says, absolutely not. I can't help the lies told on me, and under oath at that. And because your mama mad at me because y'all were forced to testify. So Sparkle is saying that her niece is doing this out of revenge, like how Sparkle did everything she did against R. Kelly. Everything she's doing is, out of revenge. So she's saying that since her mother and whatnot was kind of forced to testify, that's why they're doing it. They're saying these things out of spite instead of telling the truth. Sparkle, why does everything you say is the gospel truth, but when someone else opens up their mouth, they're lying or they're being forced to testify or somebody's just mad at you? Couldn't R. Kelly say, because R. Kelly was saying all the same things with you, and you said all those things was a lie. So again, why would anybody believe you? I believe Roshona. I believe it 100% that you did all of those things, Sparkle. I absolutely believe. Why I believe Roshona, aka Jane, is because she's never said anything from the 90s all the way until now. Roshona has not spoke a word. So if you're gonna call her a liar, what are you comparing it to? I mean, besides her perjuring herself, that was literal, like that was always going to happen. It was being purposely done. There was a lot of things going on, payments and threats and, all type of stuff that was going on. So, I mean, and she was a kid, back then. But as of now, her literally speaking on the situation, I just don't feel like she's lying. And then when it comes to Sparkle, she has lied many of times. When Sparkle was on Madame Nayor, she states that the first time she introduced her niece to R. Kelly was at a family event, which she did not specify if it was the gospel event where Shonda was speaking of. She says that's the first time they met. And then she says on Madame Nayor that the first time she introduced Roshona to R. Kelly was when she called her sister and brother-in-law down to the studio with Roshona to introduce them. So clearly you are lying. How many times did you introduce them? How many times did Roshona and R. Kelly meet? I'm just like, yeah, girl, you're clearly lying. So Sparkle is a liar. And these women like Lisa Van Allen, who we're going to get into, Andrea Kelly, whom we're going to get into, and Sparkle, they're not lying out of fear of prosecution or going to prison or anything like that. They don't fear that because they all have immunity. So they're not going to jail. Whether you view this as fair or not, because I clearly don't view this as fair, but they all have immunity, so they're not going to jail. They really want to get R. Kelly. The target is R. Kelly. So they're going to use whatever they need to in order to make that happen. But what these women truly fear is public prosecution. They don't want to be prosecuted by the public. That is what they are afraid of. That's why they keep protecting themselves and lying and knowing that they were engaging with minors as well, that they were doing things with young girls as well, that they could have protected them. But greed and money and all of those things were so much more important than making sure that these people were safe, that these young girls were safe, that these young girls weren't in this environment with these grown men. That's not what was important. Greed was. Lisa Van Allen didn't care. All she cared about was money. Andrea Kelly did not care. All she cared about was money. Sparkle did not care. All she cared about was money, because if so, R. Kelly would have been behind bars. But let's keep it moving. Andrea Kelly is the worst of them all, if you ask me. She is the ex-wife, but then wife of R. Kelly, while all of these things were going down with all of these women. She swears that she had nothing to do with anything. She's oblivious besides the rumors, and when everything came out with the infamous tape, she acts as if she has no acknowledgement of anything. Yet, in court it's stated, here it is in black and white, Daryl McDavid never got the tape. The tape was reviewed by Edward Jensen and his experts. And what you will learn is the tape that Lisa Van Allen gave them was a threesome. She was in it, but the third party in it was not a minor victim. The third party was Robert Kelly's wife, Andrea. And while he desperately did not want that video to be in the media, it had nothing to do with any crime. Robert didn't want the tape out because his wife was in it. What other reason? If he was so desperate for this tape not to see the light of day that Van Allen was using as extortion and blackmail against R. Kelly. Like I said, Lisa is a monster. I don't care what she says. I don't care what he allegedly took her through or anything like that. You are a greedy monster, a street walking monster. So Lisa is in this tape and Drea is in this tape. If that tape would have gotten out, especially then, I don't know how that would have worked with the testimonies and testifying, because Drea and R. Kelly were married. And there, at that point back then, there was no reason for Drea to testify. She wasn't in any tapes or anything like that. She wasn't really even mentioned besides the fact that they were married. Other than that, Drea, no involvement. With this tape with Lisa, if that would have hit the streets and been out then too, then she could have been an accomplice, or they felt that she was just as involved as R. Kelly. Maybe this is something that they do together as a couple, meaning that they probably would have prompted Andrea to testify against R. Kelly in some way, shape, or form. So it would have just made things 10 times more messier than it already was. R. Kelly did not want his wife and children involved in this. It was already taken on a life of its own. So Drea, Miss I'm so innocent, Miss I've never done anything, is in this tape that will be being shown. Each state is different. So some states, if you're married, you're not allowed to testify against each other. And in some states, they have rules and that are bendable. It's where they can have, husband and wife testify against one another. So I think that's a really big reason why R. Kelly didn't want that out there, is because he didn't want Andrea in it at all. He didn't want her to have any involvement, because to have her get on that stand could be bad. It could be a really bad thing. And his team, as of then, had pretty much everything under control from what it seemed. So that would have been something that would have just ruined everything. So Andrea came forward and stated before that she has had no involvement with these girls. She did nothing with these girls. R. Kelly was doing all that stuff on his own. This tape with Lisa proves that that is not true. If you were involved with Lisa in this tape, if Lisa is stating that she was involved with Rashana, especially when she was underage, what has Andrea been doing? What are you hiding? Because you clearly are hiding things. Andrea Kelly being in that tape with Lisa Van Allen just proves that she has way more involvement than she was leading on. No different than a Sparkle and others. They are all just as guilty, if you ask me. Andrea Kelly was definitely sleeping with minors. Lisa Van Allen was definitely sleeping with minors. And so was Sparkle. All of these women were sleeping with these people and watching people go through things that they should not be going through just to feed whatever hunger that they wanted within that time. Sparkle, music. Andrea, dance. Van Allen, just simply money. She just wanted to be taken care of. That's all. She didn't want to work. She didn't want to be a real woman. She wanted somebody to take care of her. She felt deserving of that. And when it ran out, all of them decided to turn on that person. Instead of going forward like real, honest, good-hearted women and reporting things that were going on because they were wrong and not reporting them out of spite. More so of, I'm going to report this now because I'm no longer feeding off this situation. I'm going to show all of them. That is why all of these women went against R. Kelly, because remember, they were all for him. All of these women kissed that man's feet, worshiped the ground that he walked on. And it got to a point to where that ground was no longer there. There was no longer anything to worship. So instead of walking away, they decided to get revenge, and using victims as their revenge and trying to place themselves as victims during the revenge. This is what all of these women did. We're going to be victims too, so that people don't look at us. But we're going to take him down type of situation. Instead of taking him down because what he was doing was wrong, we're going to take him down because we no longer support what he's doing, because he's no longer supporting us. Let me know what you think underneath this video. I love you all. Let me know what you think in the comments as well about all of these things that is going on. Do y'all think that these people should be canceled? And I think that they should. I don't think Drea deserves support with her dance studio or anything like that. Any book or anything that Lisa has, I don't feel should be being supported. And it's the same thing with Sparkle and her music. I don't think any of these women deserve to be supported. I think that since we can't send them to jail, we should send them to a public jail and isolate them like they helped do R. Kelly. Moving right along, I love you all, and I will be back with more because there's plenty of more to this story. Until then, bye. Fresh.